Now, New Zealand is, of course, a small trading nation at the bottom of the world with a population of 5 million, yet we can feed 50 million. That is, access, of course, to our international markets is something we fight tightly for on a global stage. And as I always say, our trade negotiators, in my mind, should be on the same pedestals as the All Blacks. The successor to the great work Mike Peterson has done is, of course, Mel Poulton, and joins us now. Good evening, Mel.
Good evening, Sarah. How are you?
Good. It's been a pleasure to finally get you on the show because, I mean, how long's it been since you've taken over Mike's reins?
Well, the job officially started on 1 January, but most people were on holiday for that month, and then we just started getting into things, and then COVID happened. So, yeah, I feel like we've had a bit of a stop-start. But anyway, we work with it.
I was just going to say, you'd be feeling a bit frustrated at the moment that you can't be present in our markets around the world. Where were you?
I was supposed to be in Australia this month and America and Canada next month, and that's being pushed pause. So that doesn't mean to say that we can't do a whole lot of work anyway. So it's just not necessarily person to person. So we're tapping away on things.
What's happened with our EU and UK trade deals? Has everything just completely gone to a halt? Because, I mean, we can't lose sight of what's going on there. They're very important to us.
They are certainly very important to us, and no, it hasn't halted at all. COVID certainly put a bit of challenge in the mix, and the negotiators haven't been able to necessarily negotiate face to face in the same room with each other. But recently, they did have a meeting where they were, talking through one of the next rounds. So, things are still progressing there, but it's slow going, and people are doing the best that they can with the situation that the world is facing, and we just can't get away from how significant this COVID outbreak has been across the globe.
Mel, we played earlier in the show, and I'm sure you didn't hear because I know you've told me before you're an avid podcast on demand Sarah's Country listener due to some internet situations there in Tararua. But we played a video that was sent to me from a US rancher really explaining how tough the situation is for them on the ground, not being able to process any crops, animals, dumping milk, the whole lot. Yet meat from Namibia is surfacing on their shelves and filling that gap. Can you give an understanding, a raw understanding of what it's really like in the US when processors get workers with the virus?
Look, the US is facing a situation that they've never experienced before amongst the processing industry there in all meat processing, so be it pork, chicken, or pork or poultry, because that could also include turkey, as well as beef, and even there's a lamb plant there that we see has been impacted, and it is really, really significant. Some of these CEOs of the big companies like JBS, Cargill and Smithfield are saying, warning that, they're facing a situation that they've never faced before, and they are worried about meat supply getting into US supermarkets. So from what I'm reading, it's a pretty serious situation. That said, there are hundreds of meat processors in the US, and according to my tallies, I've got over 75 that are facing impacts from COVID-19 where staff are impacted or testing positive, and there are a lot of plants over there that are, even though they've had staff testing positive and putting them on quarantine, the plants are still remaining operational. There are a number of plants that have closed, some of which have closed indefinitely, and some have closed only for a 2-week period, and some have closed only for a few days. So now we're seeing some of those plants that were closed for a 2-week period coming back on stream, but there are a number of plants over there that have been closed indefinitely, and some of these are major processing plants with well over 2,000 or 3,000 workers. So it's pretty significant.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about patch protection on the show, not only tonight but ongoing. What opportunities does that leave for New Zealand, and where does the consumer sort of view us, I suppose?
I think New Zealand is in a really great space. We've just got to honour the people right across the industry. And as you said before, our trade negotiators need to be up there like our All Blacks are, and I totally agree. We've got some fantastic people working in our ministries and both MPI and MFAT and around the world in our with our diplomatic posts, all just doing a tremendous job and really, really working hard on behalf of New Zealand. But we can't they're just one part. You've got to go right through the whole system here in New Zealand and think about the science and education support to the industry. And research. You've got to think about all of the service providers, be they in the banking system, be they our farm retailers or our seed merchants or our distribution channels, all our local trucking firms. There's just so many people right across New Zealand that make our whole primary industry really thrive, and we've got to celebrate them. And not to mention our food processors here in New Zealand as well, who have been absolutely working extraordinarily hard to really help New Zealand navigate its way through this COVID outbreak here in New Zealand. So all of that is built on the legacy of the past. And they've created a really great platform for New Zealand to be in right now, and we've got an opportunity to seize the moment and think about how we navigate our way through this at a global level, at an international market level. And I really think that New Zealand's well placed because we're small, we're nimble, we have flexibility, we've got numerous markets around the world, just in the meat industry alone. Over 120 different markets around the world. And so everybody talks about, our reliance on China. Sure, we've had a big reliance on China, and that's helped us through a lot of tough times, including the GFC. But even with this COVID outbreak, we've seen our exporting companies being able to adapt and move product to different markets to be able to respond to what's going on. And that's given us, the ability to be nimble and flexible has enabled us to keep product flowing. And, even the likes of Zespri right now, they're seeing no real hold-ups at all on any of their exports, even through the distribution line. But in the US, as we were talking before with their meat processors and the whole meat industry over there facing some significant challenges, they've had to really adapt right throughout the whole sector from logistics and distribution to reconfigure how they move food around the country, and that shift from food service to supermarket retail has been major. And when you've got this clogging system happening in the meat processing plants over there, that's building up into the cold stores, which can create some challenges for New Zealand. That said, we haven't had any absolute stop yet. Product is still moving through, but it has been going a little bit slower and a little bit more technical challenges to actually getting it through. But that's really just a staffing issue and having, those whole systems over there having to reconfigure themselves.
Thank you so much, Mel. That's an absolutely fantastic update on where we're at. And, of course, hitting the straps as soon as you can, I'm sure, to get overseas and take up the post of your special agricultural trade envoy role. Now, just before you go, though, we're celebrating New Zealand-made products. What's one of yours that you'd like to give a plug to?
Well, I have to plug our local Tararua businesses. So mine is Norswear, and right now I've got my Norswear socks on, and they're keeping my toes nice and toasty pie warm. So I've got to support our local businesses for sure.
Oh, 100%. Absolute massive fan of Norswear. Absolutely. Thank you so much. That's Mel Poulton joining us here on Sarah's Country.
This is Sarah's Country.